Then there was that night. This night, actually. It was a night that I was so used to spending alone, I didn't even bother trying to turn on the lights as I stepped up from my bed and pulled on a sweater and a pair of United Converse before I made my way out of my room in so many days. I needed fresh air and my window was broken, unable to open it up. It was in the middle of the night, maybe even morning. It was still dark outside, so I just assumed it was still night, even though I hadn't checked the time yet. Couldn't care less. Anyway, it was a pain in the ass to come out of my room, to not wake my stupid roommate up. All I needed was to go outside for a minute or two, gather some air, maybe go and buy some cigarettes. I had promised myself to stop smoking, but lately, that was the only thing I had been doing. Smoking. I only snuck out late at night to go and get some more new cigs. It was a bad thing, I knew it, but it was the only thing to keep me going and kept me awake and safe. But that particular night, there was something strange. Someone had unlocked the gate out to the street. It hadn't happened before, and I thought that the landlord held a hard hand to keep it locked at all times. Didn't bother. I just pushed a little red box out of the pocket and started smoking. The good thing about the night was there was no one around, no one to annoy me with their stupid voices. It was just quiet, maybe just a car driving by, but then no more than that. It was peaceful. A few minutes after gaining some cold on my warm skin and some smoke inside my lungs, I decided to go back in and maybe try to watch some television. Nothing good aired at night, but it was always worth a try. I stepped back into the building and shrugged the last bit of unwanted cold off, making myself ready to sneak back in my room, but as soon as I came to the staircase, there was something in my way. Or someone was standing in the stairs. I had to admit it did scare me to a point, but a second later it was back, not giving a single fuck. State of tired to walk up the stairs without confronting a person standing in the way. At first I thought it was my roommate, but the shadow of the person was too manly, too big to contain my roommate that I knew. I tried to pass the odd stranger and just lightly bump into my elbow into his, but he didn't move or spoke. He just stood there. It was creeping me out, and the scenario was too freaky, but of course there was no other student in the apartment building just waiting to scare the shit out of some other poor first-year student, but I wasn't the one to be fooled. But I didn't stop until I heard a sound. It was one of those sounds where it just caused your concentration to break shut. It was distracting, scaring, unnerving. I couldn't continue on, so I froze in my position and tried to turn around to face him. At first, there was a crack, the sound that startled me. Then there was a young man's voice sobbing, but it wasn't human. Maybe to some degree, but its voice was pitching up, like it was breaking through the bad static of a television screen. I stood only a few steps away from the man's shadow. I wanted to break away from my sudden frozen state, but I couldn't. I was stuck and my feet had been nailed to the stairs. I was trying to speak, but he spoke before I had the chance. It was getting clearer to see how, since spending some more time in the darkness helped my vision to clear up. He was wearing some kind of jeans, black everything, a sewn cap, and strings falling from a hole in the back, also black. His hair was torn but long, like it had been able to cut, like he hadn't been able to cut it for a while or showered. His appearance was alarming inside of my mind, but his voice appeared like a dagger in my ears. When he spoke, he made off another static noise like a broken radio, but he spoke in words, tried to calm me down, but I was already too scared to try to bring myself to relax. "You're alone here, aren't you?" I swallowed hard. I thought of someone spying on me this entire time was filling my head and like urging vomit. Feeling disgusted by this man's voice, I shook my head. No response. I couldn't give him a reply. I shouldn't have. Maybe it had changed this whole time situation, maybe better. Maybe I hadn't been here now, scared for my life, but I was, and I knew he knew that I was as well. But I didn't give him an answer he expected. He turned to me, and his sight was one of the most terrifying yet fascinating faces I've ever seen. He wasn't scared or wounded in any way to make me feel uncomfortable by his appearance. But his eyes and his mouth there was a weird glow, a golden orange glow. It filled both his eyeballs and his mouth, his teeth shining through with a bright yellow light glowing in the dark, and casted a light across on the stairs, the floor, on me, and I could see his smirk on his gray painted face. That when I snapped, it wasn't human, and I had to get away from there. I broke through the invisible bonds and threw myself up the stairs, running quickly as my untied shoes slammed against the wooden floor. I fled up to my room without a second thought. Hopefully my roommate that I had been ignoring for so many weeks would hear me and call the police. I closed the door after me and I locked it, my stumbling feet bringing me across the floor and into the desk, knocking my precious family doll down to the floor. The porcelain broke and I gasped in panic, trying to recollect myself and my thoughts. There was no more noise after I slammed the door into my room. No roommate coming after me, no weird glowing man in the stairwell, just me and my broken doll. Laying on the floor, I tried to scream and cry, call for any help at all. It wasn't real. I had become too crazy, insane. After spending so many months just being alone, this is what had happened. I was laying on the floor, broken and shattered in pieces. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor panicking back and forth by crawling the best I could. The cigarette from before now was just sat like a needle in my throat now. I was thirsty, but I couldn't move out to the kitchen to drink anything. Maybe he was there still waiting for me to come out, but I wasn't moving out of my spot. I never did. For an hour of complete silence in my room, I began to calm down and stood up, trying to calm myself down. There was still that feeling of being watched. I know the feeling too well. Feeling of being paranoid and lonely all came down to this, a breakdown. Once I remember the doll being broken, I immediately started to try and patch it together. It was like the only thing I had in focus. My best friend, the doll. I managed to get a needle and thread right in my room to get some glue and get the doll back to its former glory, but it was not easy. No matter how hard I tried, the doll just wouldn't fall back together. It became an endless attempt of nothing. I had tried again and again, but it just wouldn't fall in it would just fall in pieces. My only friend. I became too tired of the sudden panic to the fixing of the doll, so I passed out on my bed, but they curled up together in a ball with a blanket over my head, somehow imagining that no monster under my bed could reach me now. All I wanted was to sleep. I didn't know he could come back. This time it was different, however. This time I welcomed it. I was tired of running all the time. I would rather die in my sleep than face another day being lonely again. And now with my only friend broken, what was I supposed to do? It was tiring the way he had approached me this time. It was like I was asleep, but still I could control my body, like a lucid dream. I wouldn't dare to step into another day. Tonight it would end just like that. I had been afraid that it would, but I don't care anymore. Didn't bother. I just wanted to have a long sleep and never wake up, never face the loneliness again. He came back to me, with his hands guiding me up from my bed. He wrapped his mind around me as I tried to see, but the only thing I could still see was his gray hands holding mine tight. But suddenly there was a sensation I wasn't sure I could feel, of floating. Like a puppet, he could cut his wrists, but it wasn't across, more like he was from the center of my arm down. He reached for something, muscles he had to peel out and hang on to. The bad thing was I allowed him to do. My struggle had become too much to bear with, and with the long pieces of muscle hanging out from the cuts on my wrists, he started to pull at them. He pulled at them like he wanted to control my body and arms. How it all came together in reaction to my nerve system and skeleton. He knew how it worked. Yet there was no pain that filled my heart or body, just another piece of my mind saying at ease again. It was a wonderful feeling. It was like nothing else mattered. As he continued to cut me open, he began singing. They call me the Puppeteer. My fingers are thin and my hands are stained with my tears. For the puppets I steer with all the strings and dreams. Now I could see him clear, the man who had just hated with me. I now welcomed the finish of my endless suffering. Maybe it had been him forced me into this thinking. Maybe he was the one to blame for everything I had done to myself. Was this all in my head, or was it real? They call me Puppeteer. I had no friends like you, for no one saw the value of my friendship. But in the end, became my friends, with the strings and dreams. It took me only a minute to lose every sense of touch. My nerve system had been crushed under his hands of this man. This thing breaking every bone in my body. I could feel he twisting my ribs and twisting my hip bone, all for it to make it easier for him to turn me into what he saw me fitting to be. It was like the long pieces of torn muscle was string controlling my limbs and had fallen from the other side and could now see his smile, so I smiled back. They call me Puppeteer. My body dark and my eyes hunger of gold. In my eyes no one is alone, and with my string and dreams you shall be my friend too. The last feeling I could feel was his hand tugging hard on my neck, then snap. At first I was afraid to see death approaching me this way. I had never thought of it this way. I would have said no and refused. It could have decided it on my own, but I said yes. With a broken neck, death was just half a second away. Then there was nothing but a golden smile and his warm hands holding my strings up as my body fell. Early the other morning, my roommate found me dead. I had committed suicide by hanging myself in the fan in the ceiling, assuring death. I had jumped from the bed. Beside me was a doll, the broken porcelain doll with the red dress, lovely blonde hair. You may be wondering how I'm writing this to you now, or how I found my way to contact you. I found it necessary to write down my story before I passed on. This is my legacy. This is what I'm leaving behind. I couldn't stand the loneliness anymore. I couldn't stand facing the problems on my own. It took so long, too long. Dear Mom and Dad, I am so sorry.